vision. Did you have a vision in 1970 of what you wanted this to become?
I always told everybody I worked with, my big goal was just to be financially solvent. I just always wanted to pay my bills and never let my dreams go ahead of my cash. And that's the part I enjoyed the most, actually, managing the cash. I really did. I would always think of cash flows, and I was going to pay my bills. Just to keep me up a lot, but I enjoyed it.
Very interesting.
We were a private business, and that was enjoyable. I hope you don't think I'm too cutthroat and empathetic. I told you I'm empathetic, but I didn't like my competition.
I don't blame you. I'm almost hesitant to ask this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. I'm curious to know what you think we should be teaching young people who want to be entrepreneurs. And do you think we can teach students to become successful entrepreneurs?
I'll tell you the thing I think you can learn. I was thinking about this. Sailing teaches you so much intuition. You know, you have to figure out the wind, you know, when your sails are set right. I don't know if something subtle like being out there all by yourself in the ocean can teach you intuition. But can you teach? I think the person who wants to register in the class is already pre-sold in being an entrepreneur, aren't they? That's half the battle. Can you teach somebody to walk down the street and keep their eyes open and say, you know, there's a successful business over there. What are they doing right? I think perhaps most people are too busy to keep their eyes open. So maybe to teach entrepreneurship, people should just have a little more idle time and be comfortable with your anxiety. Aren't you basically, intrinsically, at your age, shouldn't you be just basically miserable? You don't know where your next meal is coming from? Is that fair to say? Just be truthful. I am suffering. I don't know where my next meal is coming from. But rather than dealing with my career, I'm just going to be busy. Isn't that a good cop-out to say, well, rather than my anxieties, I'm just going to submerge myself in busy, busy, busy behavior. Is that fair to say? Isn't it the hour that you're being dumb, the time that life comes up to you and says, yeah, things are a little nervous.
So we should maybe be teaching students to become better observers?
Yes.
And what kinds of things do you pay attention to?
Oh, I look at everything. I live with my eyes. I'll notice, I like looking at I used to go with my father, and we would go to shops, and we'd just look from the front door, and he'd call it window shopping. And I just learned to observe businesses from the front door. You observe the lighting, the way they merchandise, how they do their windows. Very important. Very important. Most people are too busy. I'll give you an example of busyness. In our business, how many of you have been patrons of Kinko's? Okay. What are you, I'm going to say that you're probably, when you go inside a Kinko's, uptight and confused. You don't know what you want, and you want it yesterday. Are you really like, oh, let's go have a peaceful moment and go to Kinko's? Never. So if you're dealing with people that are uptight and agitated, do you think I'm going to have everything disheveled in the store? I'm going to have people dressed in all sorts of weird outfits? We finally figured out, after being in business 7 or 8 years, that if we dressed nicely, look like a Republican, people will treat us a little better. So, but I would take all the people I worked with to the front door, and I'd say, now what is going on in this business? What's your sense of balance? The customer wants a sense of proportion, a sense of evenness, not too many high objects, a sense of neatness. Isn't that right? You're dealing with uptight people. Would you send a conflicted message? We're going to do the colors in yellow and red and make you all agitated? Calm, calm. So I take our people to the front door and I'd say, what's your sense of balance? Then I would take the same people to the cash register and I'd look out. Inevitably, the best sense of balance was at the cash register looking out. We didn't look as our customers. And people are too busy. They go to work every day in a video. They don't see it. I walk in once while, I see the still picture. Here I have $500,000 of machines in these stores, and there's a telephone here, and they put Post-it notes with all these obscene colors on it. And what are your eyes going to see? You're not going to look at the beautiful Xerox machines and all that wonderful stuff I want you to look at. You're going to look at that phone and all that obscenity of what do they call those, Post-it note colors? Right. They don't see it, but you got to remind them, look as your customers.
I'm going to kind of ask you a favor. When I go into class each day, I ask my students typically at the start of class, what's going on in the world? And I'm not complaining because a lot of my students are here, but they really don't have too much to say. So I would like for you, if you would, to do me a favor and tell them the importance of being curious and paying attention to what's going on today.
It's astounding, the lack of knowledge of current events. I teach at USC in my own class. Give them a little current events test in the beginning. 2 students this last few weeks ago, they were 2,200 in the SAT types, solid A's. Native Californians couldn't point Arizona on the map. The guy said, oh, it's sort of in this area. How do you not know where Arizona is? Do you think that if you didn't know where Arizona was, you might have had that straight A education, but you got in the lunchroom and they're going to say, fired? What do you think? I mean, it's just certain things. How many of you knew last summer there was a flood in Pakistan? What are you going to talk about when you get out in the real world if you don't have any knowledge of current events? How do you have any way of assimilating your education in some sort of context if you don't have a knowledge of current events? I was always a current events junkie. I'd go home at 4 o'clock and watch news till 7. Maybe I took it to the extreme. But I wake up in the middle of the night and I watch the BBC for 5 minutes to find out what the hell's gone on since I went to bed. I'm really curious. You ever read a good book? You just can't wait for the next chapter? It never happened to me, but I hear you can do it. But the news is like that.
So you heard it from Mr. Orfalea himself, my students. Be curious, pay attention.
And watch the paper, read the news, be involved.
Thank you. I'm sure that goes a lot further than my words of encouragement, so thank you for the favor, Paul. In your book, there's a statement you make that you say, every setback is a step in the right direction. I'm just wondering what you mean by that, and what are your thoughts on failure in general?
Which, unfortunately, you have to live with it, don't you? It'd be nice to. It would have been nice if I had. But you know what? At the end of the day, here I am. I got my own business. Every miserable thing in that business came to my attention. If they didn't tell me about it, I was out looking for it. I walked down the hall and I'd see stuff that aggravated me. So after going to work for 8 hours, 7 hours, I'm just finding stuff that aggravates me. And at the end of the day, I go home seething from this aggravation. I say to myself, did these people go to work just to aggravate me today with stupidity? I mean, you just can't believe some of the stuff. If you're not vigilant on top of your business, people will do. And you know, I'm the owner. And what's weird is there's a difference between the CEO and the owner. The owner is across the street saying, are you viable? I was the only guy that didn't feel like they were seduced by that business. I never was seduced by it. I was always paranoid. I was always thinking, somebody's going to come and wipe me out. And they were. You know what? Somebody did come and I started being aware of it, and I sold my business. I kept looking at the laser printer thinking, you know, they're not across the street, this laser printer, but it's going to come in from left field and wipe me out. And it sort of did. Wipe out Kinko's, the laser printer. Why do you go to a copier anymore? And that was the mother lode of our business. But I could see it coming. I just felt it coming. You know, I knew it in my stomach. It was time to get out of Dodge. And I think I was correct. Maybe. But you gotta know when to sell.
Mm-hmm. You know, Paul, I think, and it's certainly probably true of me as well, maybe everyone here, we look at you, you're Paul Orfalea, you're the founder of Kinko. It's a very, very successful company. And I think many people might assume that you never failed. And so I'm just wondering, is success dependent upon failing sometimes?
Well, since I had 50 years, until I was 50, I just felt like, man, it was just, the happiest day of my life. I cashed that check and felt safe. I don't know.